Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, it's time to prepare for a repair. So I have here a couple of trees in my grape wood. It's kind of a sawed in half, hollowed out grape wood log and got all kinds of texture on it, and I made it into a bonsai pot. One of my many little arts and crafts with a piece of wood that my brother thought I could use for bonsai project. And I have one of my variegated Benjaminas in here as a little shohin sized tree. And then over to the right, this is a cutting from one of the original Molinas that we used at one of the MBS workshops some 3 years ago now. The Molina, also known as a parrot's beak. Very interesting tree. I have one left that I'm working on. Maybe we can show that as an update on this episode, because this Molina is super small and cute and still growing. Came into the plant room and the growth is still there. We're getting new growth on it. And the reason why I'm working on it right now is not because it maybe needs a repot, although I'm not quite sure what it looks like underneath here, but the grape wood needs some repairs. So here again is a close-up of the variegated Ficus benjamina and the Molina plant. You'll notice on the Molina plant, it has kind of like a web foot leaf structure here. Kind of almost like a frog's foot or a duck's foot, webbed. And then you get kind of oval when they get a little bit bigger. Now this is maintained a little bit smaller size. It's a smaller tree. It's a shohin right now, and we're going to continue to cut it back and have this tree. Now whether I put these two trees back in here when this is fixed still remains to be seen. But we're going to fix this because here is the underside of the grape wood here. Super fun. And but we've got some decay. So look right there, that big crack. So that big crack here means this section right here is a little bit weak and wobbly. So we're going to depot this. We're going to get rid of all the soil in this sphagnum moss here on top. We're going to put these into a couple of smaller ceramic pots for the rest of the winter season. And then maybe next spring, summertime, we can find either new trees for this, or we can put these back in there after I repair it. So we're going to go ahead and spray some more of the Flex Seal rubber coating on the inside, and we're going to get some shellac, some real thick stuff to put over here again and get the shine back in here, clean it up a little bit, and hopefully make it last for a couple more years. The problem with this kind of pot, of course, in Mother Nature is the rain, the cold, the warmth, and it's not outside in the winter months, which is good, but it's still taking a little bit of a beating, so we're going to go ahead and clean that out. So yeah, we're going to start that process right now. So we're going to go ahead here and get rid of the sphagnum moss first, and then the soil, and we're going to see how this root system looks with these two trees. Originally, when I planted this, there were 4 trees in here. I believe I have a video on this. I'll see if I can archive that video, or take a peek at the archives and see if I can pull it up for you. There were 4 trees in this planting, and I think one of them died for sure, if not both of them, or I transplanted one of them into another forest or something. So I only have these 2 left. So, curious to see how this root system has spread throughout this log when it's not a traditional bonsai pot. So it looks like there's a lot of roots that traveled through the length of the pot here. And it's really firm. Look at that. These trees are not going anywhere. Look at that. Look at this big old root over here. Might be coming out the bottom over here. This root's going that direction. There is some sturdiness to this root system here. Oh, there's a big root right here too. Might be growing right into this old wood. Some of it might have shot into the wood and just attached itself to this this half a log. Yeah, let's look at that if you can here. If I can show you this here. Oh, right there. You see that was tucked underneath this log right there. I just pulled it up here, tucked underneath this section right there. So we're going to kind of pull this up gently if we can. There we go. There we go. And some of these longer roots, if they break at the tips, I don't mind so much because we're going to go ahead and cut these roots back in the new pot anyway. So look at that. Big root there, and there. There's a couple big ones down here. Look at that, grew into the drainage screen. Oh yeah. So we've got some decisions to make when we root prune this one. And then how about the smaller one, the Molina? Oh, that one's still in there pretty tight. Yeah, look at that root right there. So that root right there is growing right into that edge of that corner of that log there. Really nice and tight. Right here. There it comes, right there. Look at that. It comes way down over here. All right. So this did really, really well into this, this homemade pot made out of the wood. The half. There we go. There's still some roots clinging on there. So we're going to go ahead and clean all of that up today. And then we're going to put some shellac. And I don't have any current shellac, but you see how weak it is right here, and you see how weak it is right there? This is the weathering of this log. So we're going to go put a nice amount of shellac on the bottom here, really protect this bottom section so we can get another growing season out of it. So we'll set that aside and we'll work on that later. What we get to work on first here are these two trees and their root systems. So pretty decent root flare on this one. It's getting nice and wide at the bottom. There's actually a little bit of a, unbelievably for this small tree, probably because we've nipped it and tucked it a couple of times, it's got a little bit of a girth down here. It actually gets wider at the bottom, so the nabari is not too bad. But look at that nice root structure all the way around. So we got this great big root here, and then everything else is a little bit smaller. So we're just going to trim these down here. I'm going to get rid of this one right here back to about here, and we'll cut it down so we have the roots that can grow more down. We'll cut this one shorter, cut this one shorter. This one's going down. You see this wiggly one back here? We'll cut that back up to here. We'll cut that off. Okay, see if we got some more we can shorten up here. See how this is going to sit into its new pot. We have a couple roots here. This one's going straight up in the air. So one benefit to me doing this and making the structure nice and sound for next spring and spring and summer is I get to look at the roots here and see what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. This one's growing straight up. This one's growing straight up. So now the only one that I'm questioning on is this one over here. It's a little high in the plane, so let's go ahead and cut that one off. And then I think we're going to leave, let's take this one off as well. There we go. Now everything swoops down into the remaining roots here. So we have this big root over here, we have a big root over here, and one kind of going this way. As a matter of fact, we have one down here tucking underneath this. I'm going to cut that one off. So we have the 1, 2, 3, and then some fine feeder roots left. And we're going to put that one in this cute little grape pot right here. Okay, so we'll set that aside and we'll get some soil. We'll take care of that one. And the other tree has to fit into this pot. And here we got some other big roots again too. Look at this. So this one is a little bit too high in the plane. So let's go ahead and cut that one completely off. Now that's a big root, but we've got a lot more roots to support it. We're going to go ahead and cut that one off. There we go. Big root. And then this one's a little high on the plane and growing up. This one's high. And so this has a little bit of a bulge down here at the bottom as well. Now, this is the biggest root right here, but we have a big root down here too. Look at the distance between this bottom root here and this root right there. Do I cut off this bottom as the tap and keep these as the new layer? I think I will. We'll cut that whole thing off right there. And then we're going to trim this one down to here, get that big bulbous section off. There we go. And then we'll cut this one back, that big long one. And there we go. We have some fine feeder roots, and we can get that one taken care of. Now, this is in the plant room again with really good regulated temperatures. This might be a little bit better, of course, for us to go this drastic in the June, July time of year, but we have enough roots there to support this tree, I'm confident, and we're going to put that in here. So we're going to get some soil, and we're going to get these two into the pots. Time to go retrieve my soil. So I've got some soil that we are ready to put into these pots. That's some good, nice, fine soil. And it's wet right now. Wet from being outside, actually. Got caught in the rain, so I got good rainwater in there. And so what's nice about working with wet soil is that you can really put like forest together real easy. And these small little trees when you put them in there, you can get them to stand up real nice, because that's already wet soil, especially when it's this fine soil like this is. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to see how our tree looks. Now I'm not going to wire this in because we're not going to be in the elements of any wind or rain or any critters outside to knock it over, so we don't need any wire to tampen or damage these roots at all. Let's go ahead and lift it up just a little bit and tuck some of that soil underneath. Let it sit real nice on this plane. There we go. That's where a root was right there, that little white section right there. So as I look at this tree, that has a little wound right there, so this might be a better front, but that looks like it has a healing wound as well. But we'll have this as our front. We'll move it over to the left just so slightly from center. So it's just off to the left a little bit, and then here's a primary branch right off to the right, so that's kind of nice. So there's tree number one. That's in there pretty good. I think I'll put just a little bit more soil in there. I also could put some rocks in here to secure it. But as long as I don't have too big of a mound, I want that water to go in the rocks and not over the rocks. If you look at all of my trees in my collection, you will notice that there are some trees, especially the forest, that have big mounds of soil and sphagnum moss. And boy, that just can, if you water it when it's really dry, the water can just roll right over the edges. So we like to keep that bonsai soil as flat as possible and just under the lip of the pot, and we're in good shape. What a cute little tree, even in this nice ceramic pot here. I think this one has a chop on it too. Yeah, this is an old Japanese or Chinese pot that has a nice chop on it. So we have this tree with this main branch going this way, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep it short right there and promote more ramification and thin branches. So we're going to cut this off, and there we go. We've got our little branch with almost like a little pad right down there. We have another little branch trying to grow right there. I don't want that. And there's one on its back side as well. And there's this one inside right there and one down the bottom. So now we have a clean branch right there. Now this branch does shoot off to the back pretty heavily, so I'm going to cut that back as well. And let's see. We've got a leaf that's kind of blocking our view, so I'll cut that off. And then we can kind of see through this tree a little bit. There's that area where that bird could fly through, and if we cut this off right there, we can see that path a little bit better. There we go. And so here's an old stub point right here. There we go. We're going to cut this leaf off because it's going back towards the tree. And there we have this little branch right here, all nice and tidied up a little bit right there. Now this one's shooting right at us, so we certainly don't like that. Let's cut that back a little bit. This one's getting a little bit big. We're going to cut that back right there. We got a great big leaf growing backwards. We're going to cut that one off. Great big leaf down here. So again, the bigger these leaves on these Molinas, what's also called a parrot's beak, if you let this thing grow out in a big pot, let it grow and grow and grow, and let it run and run and run, you can have a nice flower that kind of resembles that of the beak of a parrot. So this one is coming over more. We're going to bring it back here and hopefully have more growth that comes up and fills this hole right here. Okay, so now we have some of these branches coming at us. We've got this main one coming right at us, then one coming off to the side. My tree's leaning a little bit, so we're going to fix that before we're all done. Yeah, the one right at us is just too much in our face. We're going to cut this back right there for right now. And we'll see what that does. And now there's two branches competing right here. There's a branch coming out right at this chopstick, and there's a branch coming out back over here. So this over here goes more to the left, which is nice. We can cut this a little bit shorter. Cut off some of these great big leaves right here so we can see what we're doing here. And then I'll have to make a decision on this branch. Here's an old cut point that's died off. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Now this one's not as much of an eyesore. It's right in front of us. We may take that off one day. And this branch right here is getting kind of thick. We're going to cut that off. But if I have these three branches, 1, 2, and 3, all by the same exit point, that's going to create, well, it's going to create a bulge. So we're going to cut the middle one out right there. And now we have here and here. We'll cut this back a little bit shorter. These two are now about the same size. We'll cut this off right here towards the top. And this might come off someday too, just in favor of that back one. But for right now, we'll keep them both to help with this repotting process and make sure we don't cut back and create too much stress. Now this one on top too is coming right at us a little bit and off to the side. We'll cut that there for right now. I think we'll actually cut, what should we do there? Let's wait on that one. We've got this nice back branch here, but this one's growing up, so we're gonna cut that off right there. All right, there we go. And so now we've got this flat section back here with a branch off to here and a branch off to here. We're just gonna shorten this one up. We're gonna shorten this one up. And there we've got that nice little kind of pad section there and this pad section here. So I'm going to cut one of these bigger leaves off, and there we go. So as we spin the tree around, we've got this short little pad on top, a little bit longer down here. We probably could go one shorter here. There we go. And we can go one shorter here. And we can go one shorter there. There we go. Super nice and dainty, and those will come on out here and hopefully ramify some more. Now we have another section back here that's pretty thick. It's a big branch. So we have a thick branch, relatively thick, right? That goes up towards the front and one that goes towards the back. Now some from the front, when we finally tap this in for good, we'll make sure it's straighter again. We gotta see what direction we want this main tree to go into. And I think we're gonna cut this back branch right here, goes into 3. We have one coming this way, one going that way, and one growing straight there. There's another classic example of 3 cutting down to 2. So let's go ahead and do that by cutting that one off. So where there were 3, left, center, right, we took off the center. Now we have left and right. And the right side is a little bit taller than the right side, or the right side rather, from the front. So we just made those more balanced here and here, about the same size. And we've got a leaf coming out this way, a leaf coming out this way. We'll be able to fill this area as it grows. So now this front remains a little bit thick as well. Here's another 3, hard to see, right down underneath here. Got a dry leaf right there, but here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3. And so again, if that's the front of the tree, I'm gonna go ahead and cut off this one that's more at us. There we go, and we left the right side and the left side, and we cut this right side shorter, and look at that little tree now that we have to continue to grow. So we have a pretty nice tree. This branch is a little bit awkward going back instead of to the right more, but it does have this nice curve over here. That could become a real cool curvy branch down the road. We may end up cutting this back branch off at some point, but I like it right where it's at. We've got this pad over here, we've got this kind of front section here, and then down here we've got this lower section with these longer branches, and then a try up here. It splits to 2, left and right, and then up here it splits left and right, and over here, left and right. So it's a pretty balanced tree. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna move it around in the pot again a little bit more to get that lean where I want it. Here we go. And this one is ready to go back on the shelf in the plant room and start to grow. What a cute little tree. This is a Shohin size tree, anything under 8 inches. Tree number 1 is done, and maybe it'll go back in that log next summertime. That's a cute little tree. And now it's time for tree number 2. Now as I look at this and pick it up, this root is the biggest thing on here. We're gonna cut that back about 1 inch and promote roots growing down. There we go. These two are about the same size now, and that one's the shortest back there. This one's gonna be a little more topsy-turvy. We might have to bury this one a little bit more in the pot, but we're gonna go ahead and look at this guy right here. I think that's the best front right there. Got some soil on that side. And again, this soil is wet from being outside in the rain. And so it's really nice to just put a tree in there and it kind of holds its shape. Now we're going to work on it and find the final shape later as we work on it, because it's going to be a little wobbly. This one might require a little bit of a rock or something heavy to keep it in place. So the reason why I picked this as the front is the first primary branches here, left and right here, are kind of coming this way and kind of hugging us more this way, curved this way, instead of curved that way towards the back. We want it kind of more hugging us this way. So that's going to be my front of this tree. Okay, so as we look at this tree, So there you can see, left and right, and then we have a kind of a couple of big trees coming, branches coming more right at us. I'm going to cut this right here because it's more at us. I'm going to cut it right there, and then that leaves the branch to go more upright, and then I'll cut it a little bit shorter up here, and then we'll see what we have at the end to go with that branch. To the left of that thick branch is another thick branch, and that's really gotten quite thick. And we're going to go ahead and cut this front branch off a little bit shorter down to this leaf. There's a leaf here. So we'll go ahead and cut this off to the leaf right now. Having a tough time separating that. I don't want to cut the leaf yet. There's that branch, so I left that leaf on. And I'm going to cut this down to the two leaves there. Oh, I just nipped that one off. So here's a leaf here and a leaf here. So there are still two leaves on this. So that's still pretty up front and at our face a little bit. And it's a thick branch down here, so we may have to consider taking that whole branch off because, again, this is a shohin tree. I plan to keep this one kind of cute and tiny and little, so we don't want branches to get too terribly thick in there. As you pull around to the back side here now, if this is the back of the tree, there's the branch we're working on, and look at how thick that is. So it's almost too thick, and it's almost, we might want to take that back branch for the main branches of the tree. You know what? I think we're going to do that. We're going to go ahead and come in here, and we're going to cut that main branch right off. There we go. That could be used as a cutting. I have enough of my Benjaminas, so we're going to go ahead with that. So see how that thinned that out? So again, this is the front of our tree. We have leaves in the way, so we're not seeing everything totally. So let's go ahead and clean this up for ourselves. We have no dead point there. Let's make this one shorter. Let's make this one shorter. Let's make this one, what do we got going down here? Just a little bit shorter. And this one right here, a little bit shorter. Now we can see in that tree a little bit better. So here we have this left primary branch, and it's a really nice branch. We could almost wire this one down right here to have a nice low hanging branch. We could put a little wire on there. So we're just going to leave it like this for the moment. Here's the wound we just created with that big branch. This one's going to take over now. We'll cut those dead, dry pieces off later, or as they deaden up. And we're going to go ahead and trim this little point off here. And this one back here is getting a little bit thick back here as well. So let's look at that branch. So if you can see through this tree, we have left, center, and right again. Three real close right there. And then it even splits back here to a fourth one. But if we cut this off right here, that thick part of that branch, now we're on left, this one over to the right, and then one kind of back up a little bit higher going to the back, and I like that texture of that new branch now. And we'll go ahead and cut this one shorter, and we're going to go ahead and cut this, I think, down to this leaf, because it's getting kind of thick. I think we'll cut this down to the leaf as well. That's kind of thick. There we go. This one's coming at us, so let's cut that off. This one just came off, all right. So this one's going a really weird way around this branch. So I'm just going to take it out here and just cut that off. There we go. Now we have a little bitty tree again. And so we take a look at this trunk, and the trunk is a little bit thicker down here. It gets a little thin here, but then it was starting to get too thick up here. So that's why I cut this big thick branch off. You see that section right there? That's a little bit thick. So we'll go back when this is died off, and we'll trim that right there. We'll get that trimmed up so it's a nice smooth transition. Here's another old previous cut. We'll cut that off. So this branch back here has a nice movement up here and back over this way, and we'll see what that one can turn into. We'll cut this off a little bit more. So we'll fix that up later. We'll fix this little bump up here later, and I think we're just going to leave it alone for right now. Let's get this one. It's growing a weird direction. Let's get rid of that one. I think something tells me I want to go a little bit lower on this one. Let's do that. And you know what? Let's cut the branch going up off. There we go. Now we have our branches going off this way and this way. A little bit higher on this side, a little bit lower on this side. This kind of front branch that could be manipulated later. Now we got that growth in the back. So now we're going to add that little bit of soil again on here. We're going to tamp this thing down, and then we are good to put this one on the shelf. So I'll lift it up a little bit. Okay, so, and right now I have these two leaves that are kind of blocking our trunk line, but for right now I'm just going to leave it alone and let this thing survive all this little stressful work on the plant room, and then keep growing for the winter season down here. So there is tree number 2. A little bit thick up there still. We may have to cut that back someday. And what people have a hard time viewing with the tree is you see this new leaf right here. That could become the main leader of this tree. We can cut all the rest of that off. We have our primary branches here and here, and that could become the leader. We'd have a taper from thick to thinner to really thin. So if this continues to grow too thick, we might have to take that off. And if we don't take the whole thing off, we can cut it off right here, and then that's a nice little section where we can get that thick part off. We have this and this to take over as our primary. Maybe this one would be primary because of its nice movement front and then towards the back. And we change the front around, we'll see. So this might be getting a little too thick. We'll cut off the dead wood next summer, or after it's fully dead and dried off, we'll cut that off, trim it up, and just kind of see what it's looking like. But for right now, we have a repot. It's in a cute little pot. It's out of the grape wood and ready to go back on the shelf. And so all that we're left with is the chunk of wood. So it's black inside because I used the Flex Seal. That's that rubber coating. And we'll put that on here when this is all cleaned up. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape it a little bit right now. And we'll get this all clean and get rid of all these roots. We'll get rid of all this extra rock structure here. Here's a little bit of rubber material right there. That's actually part of the wood. Got to be careful not to break too much off of here so it'll hold trees for another year outside. So we peel off all the old roots. We'll clean it up a little bit with some water. Get some of the dirt out of here. Some of the decaying akadama, broken down akadama and pumice. And we'll be able to spray some Flex Seal in here and kind of solid, make it all solid again on this side. And then on the other side, I'll have to go and invest in some more epoxy. I think I'm all out of the mix of epoxy. It's when they sell it in the 2 parts. You know, you have the 2 agents of that. I don't even know for sure what the 2 agents are. I would assume one is kind of that binding agent, a glue type, if you will, and the other one's kind of the shiny epoxy coating that gives you that shine. But of course, it all has to stick together and get hard. So there's got to be some hardening agent in there. But you mix the 2 together and you have yourself some epoxy to put over something like this. Yeah, so here we go with the wire brush. We can get in some of these nooks and crannies that the chopstick just wasn't getting at, and we can clean this out a little bit more. Now I want to be careful though, I don't want to go too rough in here because I might break off some of this wood and make it even weaker structure in the future. So there we go, we're getting rid of some of that dirt, some of the elements of the decaying bonsai soil, generally just the pumice, maybe some lava rock if I have some of that in this mix, and then of course the akadama from Japan is the super soft of the 3 substances that I use. So for most of my bonsai soil, I've gone to just pumice and akadama now, but I still have some leftover lava rock that I will use from time to time. The mix I just put in for these repots, it was just akadama and pumice, no more lava rock. And look right there, you got some grain of the wood there. You can see grain of the wood right there. And it's a little bit wet, and it looks like it went through some of the coating of rubber. And there we go. So we got most of that stuff out of there, and we'll be able to clean it up a little bit more and add some of that rubber sealant. And here's some roots that came out the back end and clinging. So now you can see the outside of the back. This is where the epoxy will go. You'll see how this kind of stayed moist a lot of the life of this outside and the big crack here. So we're going to try to seal this up as best we can with a real thick couple coatings of epoxy and make this thing last for a couple more years. It's been a really fun pot. I've loved this as just kind of a very unique bonsai pot. I did drill those holes in for our drainage holes, and we'll put some drainage screens back on there and make this into a pot again next year. So a little bit more cleanup to do, and then we'll go ahead and purchase some epoxy and maybe show you on an update someday what I did with this to fix it all up. So we'll put this aside for now. We're going to wrap up our show today with an update for you, and that's on the Molina, my big one. So one of the cuttings from my Molina is what became that plant that's in the grape wood that we just repotted. And so this is one of the ones it came from. I planted it at a little bit of an angle because it was a pretty straight trunk and I didn't want to form upright. We have a really nice thick root right here that we might have to do some work on next time. So the next iteration, when we repot this next summer, we're going to have to maybe cut that root off and see what other roots are growing here. We have this one tied down, or it is wired down, and we've got some nice good growth. So look, it's a nice runner right here. We got some runners right here. So the tree is doing pretty well. We made some big cuts a couple times ago. We did have a guy wire on here to give it a little bit of movement. It's looking pretty good overall. And so let's give it a 360 spin with a little elephant decoration there. Looks nice and filled out. It looks very tree-like on this side. From the back, you see how sparse it is, but there's one of our big chops right there. And look at how nice this branch is going to start to heal this up here and have a nice curve. It's thickening up and it's going this way. Now, it is starting to cross over this branch, so something's going to have to happen there for it to stay. So one of those two will be the new leader of each of those sections, or we'll just have maybe more growth coming out this way. So there's that cut and there's the curve. And here's another cut right here. We've got this nice branch that's coming out this way, starting to heal up nicely. And they've got this one down here that might create a bulge, so we don't have to cut that off. And here's a branch that's kind of out the back. But when you have it this way, you can see that it's a little bit more this way. And this branch is growing this way now, so we can promote that growing and cut this one back right here. So we'll continue our spin. There's where we were. So we got a decent amount of branches starting up there, and we coming back kind of to this front. So there is the Molina. I think we will go ahead and make some trims since we have it out. So we can go ahead and make this one shorter right here and balance it off to this left side. We can bring this shorter here. Get that one shorter here and here. Let's get this one a little bit shorter. This one we're going to leave a little longer. We'll cut it down to here, cut this one back to there. We'll cut this one a little shorter. We'll promote this one to get thicker here, to have that curve happen naturally as possible. And if we don't like what this turns out to be, look at the growth we have back here. We can keep that for future possible branch, so we have better taper. So we have this now branch right here. It kind of comes up and over, and now it's growing up this way. It's a little bit thick here. We've got some more branches growing down below. I think I'm just going to leave these two right alone right there. I'm not going to do a whole lot with those two. This one does have a split back here. This one's a little bit longer, so let's just cut that back. And it's growing another secondary branch up here, so we'll see what that does over time. This one we could just cut a little bit shorter. I kind of want to cut this one a little bit short. It's really thick up top. Let's go ahead and do that and see what pushes out down below. This one is a former cut point. It grew up this way. I like the movement back to the left here, so let's keep this one here. We got a bar branch right here, so we can keep maybe that one on the left side instead of the right. This one we can go a little bit shorter on. We can go shorter on this guy, shorter on that guy. So this one's kind of growing up and back towards the tree. So we're going to go ahead and cut that one off in favor of these two here and this one going back here. We'll see what that does over time, and we can shorten that one up a little bit. Get rid of that big leaf. It looks so lopsided there when we have some of these big leaves that stay on there for a long term. And we have the tip of that tree there with these curves. So we have one big branch here and one branch here. Remember, these two were competing? Well, let's go ahead and take this one right off so we don't get a bulge back here. And this will be more of a good branch for the leader. And this now these don't compete here and here. This one and this one are going to compete now. So we'll cut this one a little bit shorter and see if we can promote some growth out the back. And we can do that by cutting off some of these inside branches. And we'll just go from there. So this is kind of the apex of our tree. Going to fill out over here. We got some branches going this way, some branches going that way. I'm going to cut that one out a little bit shorter. So there we go. I didn't intend to do a whole lot with this tree today. I was just going to show it to you. But yeah, we got a couple of nice edits in there. Nice prunes. I think we have to take care of one more though, since we're in here. So this one goes more up, this one goes more down. This one's at the edge here, underneath in the inside of a curve. I don't like where that's growing. We're just going to cut that one right off and keep these two nice branches right here. Boom and boom. And this has some nice backwards movement here if we want to cut it even shorter someday. We cut off this right here for taper, and that's going to be a branch, and this could be a branch. So why don't I promote that a little bit by cutting it shorter here. There we go, and we'll see if that one takes off. And see what other growth comes here and here. We'll leave that back one a little bit longer, so we have this tree coming back this way and this way. And I think that's it. Our little update turned into a little bit of a prune. There we go, the bigger Molina, the mother tree, to the smaller one. Well, that was a lot of fun. I got the Molinas all tidied up. I got the Benjamina ficus trimmed up as well. Those two little ones are in new pots. And we'll fix up that grape wood, put some shellac on there, some more rubber sealant, and we'll hopefully prepare that for another planting of those two trees this summer, and or some brand new cuttings perhaps for that grape wood planter. I love the little oddity of that. It doesn't look like your traditional pot, and I do like that. And that is going to wrap it up for this one. Short and sweet once again from the plant room. Hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next one.